This movie is going to introduce autocorrect. We'll look at utilizing the standard autocorrect features, setting up some exceptions, customizing autocorrect to an extent, and turning it off in a couple of different ways if it sort of gets in the way. I've used the snip tool to take a picture of the autocorrect dialog box so that we can look at some of the option settings on the dialog box. The first one, and they're all selected, they're all turned on here, of course, and that is true with the setting of this instance of Excel as well. The first one says Show Autocorrect Options buttons. That has to do with inserting hyperlinks into your spreadsheet. I'm going to type a hyperlink, www.msn.com, and enter, go down. When I hover over the hyperlink that I just entered and move the cursor down, I get this Autocorrect Options drop down. There's a couple different things I can do here. I can undo the hyperlink, stop automatically creating hyperlinks, so I can turn off the autocorrect feature that is associated with hyperlinks. I can also left click this and get to that part of the autocorrect dialog box that has to do with hyperlinks and make some other changes and adjustments. I'm going to cancel out of that. There is a way to turn that off and to turn off the next 5 options that we'll take a look at. I'll go first to the autocorrect dialog box and show you where that is. The easiest way to get there is Alt-F-T, use the keyboard shortcuts, left-click Proofing, Autocorrect Options, and there it is. So I'm going to deselect Show Autocorrect Options buttons, say OK, OK, and enter my website address again. Enter down arrow. And now I don't get that drop down arrow for the autocorrect options. The next 4 options on the autocorrect dialog box are fairly self-explanatory. We can go through them very quickly here. Correct 2 initial caps. If I have 2 initial caps, enter, autocorrect will make the second cap lowercase. Capitalize first letter of sentences. Well, sort of. I'm going to type a sentence. Why? That's a sentence. And once you establish a full stop with a sentence, the next sentence that you initialize with the word the, I'm going to hit the space bar, and autocorrect automatically capitalizes the T to begin my next sentence. So once you establish a full stop with a sentence, autocorrect will handle the sentences after that and capitalize the first letter. Down arrow, capitalize the first letter of the days of the week. Correct accidental use of caps lock key. I'll turn my caps lock on and type a word, which is going to be the inverse of the case that I would really want. Spacebar, and autocorrect corrects it. Enter. Replace text as you type. This has to do with the list that's showing below with the column beginning with the word across that's spelled incorrectly, which will be replaced with the correct spelling of across. I'm going to down arrow a couple and type in across in the incorrect way. Spacebar, autocorrect automatically corrects it. Now, there's 2 major categories of exceptions within the standard dialog box for autocorrect. To get to autocorrect again, we're going to press the Alt-F-T keys, left-click Proofing, Autocorrect Options, left-click Exceptions. The first group of exceptions has to do with whether autocorrect will capitalize the following word after you type what's in this list. So why would it do that? Well, it's because autocorrect is going to capitalize the first letter of a new sentence. And autocorrect will assume that you're starting a new sentence if you have a period at the end of a text string, unless that period is preceded by an item on this list. So it enables you to put within your sentences standard abbreviations followed by a period without autocorrect then capitalizing the word that follows the abbreviation. The other group of exceptions that you can set up has to do with whether autocorrect corrects a word that has 2 characters that are uppercase in the beginning of the word. If you list that item on here, autocorrect will leave it alone and leave those 2 characters intact. On occasion, you may run into an issue where you have, let's say, an acronym for a company that's ACN, and I'm going to type ACN space, and autocorrect is going to correct that to CAN because it's on the list. Well, you can remove that from the list. Going back to autocorrect again, Alt-FT, left-click proofing, autocorrect options. There are a couple of things you can do to prevent autocorrect from doing what it just did. You can deselect replace text as you type, and autocorrect won't replace any text that you type with anything on this list. Or you can actually delete that item, and I'm going to delete it. Say OK. OK. When I'm back here and I type ACN space, autocorrect now leaves it alone because it's not on the replace with list anymore. Another thing you can do with autocorrect is to have it replace a text string that you type in with a much longer complicated text string if you have company names or scientific names or certain text strings that you want to type consistently and they're possibly long, the spelling is difficult. Not that the spelling is difficult on this word, but this is, from what I understand, the longest word in the English language in C3, anti-disestablishmentarianism. We're going to set up autocorrect, Alt-FT, to replace ANTI with the full word. I'll click Add, OK, OK, and now when I type ANTI space, autocorrect will automatically fill in that rather long word for me. So this is an introduction to autocorrect. We took a look at turning off the options for the hyperlinks so that we don't have that drop-down menu anymore. We looked at the standard functionality where autocorrect corrects the two initial caps. It'll capitalize the first letter of sentences after the first sentence. It'll capitalize the names of the days of the week. It'll correct for accidental use of the caps lock, and it will replace with certain text strings, other text strings that can be corrections of spellings. It can be replacement of text that may be long and complicated to type. And we looked at some exceptions for autocorrect where it will leave abbreviations alone from a list that we can control so that it doesn't capitalize the first letter of the first word that follows the abbreviation that ends with a period. We also saw where we can set up some exceptions where autocorrect will leave alone the case where there's a word that has an uppercase character for the first two characters.